Hi everyone, so welcome to this week's cooking session. So it's Easter themed, so all three sessions that I'm going to be doing this week are going to be based around Easter, and they can be adaptable depending on the flavours that you like. So today it's going to be puff pastry Easter bunnies, and you can either do them cinnamon flavour or you can do them chocolate, which I know the majority of you are going to go for chocolate because you do if I give you that option at school. So first things first, before we get started cooking, is washing hands. It's really important. I've taken my rings off as well, and it's making sure that you give your worktop a couple of sprays and wipe your worktop down. So this can be really easy, or you can make it a little bit more difficult. So for those of you that are a little bit older or fancy a challenge, I'd like you to make your own puff pastry, but it's called rough puff. So it's not as complex as making your own puff pastry because that can take hours. This is really quick and simple. So if you want to, and to save time, you can buy your own puff pastry from the shops, any shop. The Co-op will do it as well, a local one. You can get it in a block or you can get it in a ready roll sheet. It's easier obviously if it is already in a ready roll sheet because it saves you from having to roll it out, but it doesn't matter if it's not, it's all the same. What I've done is I've made some rough puff pastry that I made earlier, and I'm going to show you how to make your own now. So like I said, the reason why it's called rough puff is because it cuts out some of the stages. It doesn't have as many layers, but it's still successful. So, what you need for your rough puff pastry is 250 grams of butter and 250 grams of plain flour. Now, the reason why there's so much butter in it is because it creates those layers and that lamination within the pastry. So, I have got here my flour that I'm going to sieve in. So always sieve the flour in. It's really important. Okay, so you're trapping that air, you're causing that aeration, and you're getting rid of the lumps. And then you're adding in your butter. You can use margarine if you want to, it's absolutely fine. But to make it easier for yourself, you're going to break the butter up into smaller pieces. You do want it slightly softened. They do say for a true puff pastry, it should be really cold. And actually, if you'll see on the Bake Off, making a true puff pastry, it takes hours. It takes a lot of chilling as well, and a massive amount of butter. But where this is rough puff, we can skip some of those steps. It's all about having fun. So, you might find if you've got margarine, where it's got that higher water and oil content that I've spoken to you about before, you might find it will come together into a dough quite easily. You might find if you have proper butter that you might need a little bit of cold water in there to bring it together into a dough. It just depends. I very much doubt you will need any water. So what you're going to do is you're going to start bringing it together like this with your hands. So you're not so much rubbing in and being that delicate as we would with short crust pastry. We are being a little bit more brutal with it, and we want to bring it together, but you do not want to add too much heat to it. So the quicker we can bring it together, the better. So, what you want is you want your butter and your flour to be mixed together and to come together into a dough. If it's too dry, add a tablespoon of cold water until it comes together. And what you will have is this. So this is what I have already made. So you can see from this how much butter is in it, but like I said, that adds the layers. So what I'm going to do, because this is a double batch, I did 500 and 500. So I've got one lot for the cinnamon and one lot for the chocolate. So I'm going to start off. So you should have your ball of dough that looks like this. And to make the layers, you need to dredge your worktop. It's high in moisture, obviously, because of the amount of butter that's in it, so it will stick. And what you're going to do is you're going to roll it out into a rectangle. Or like an oval rectangle, I would say. So we want it to look like this. And then what you're going to do to create those layers is you're going to fold and fold, okay? So you're rolling it out into an ovally rectangle. Don't be too precious with the shape. And you're bringing the bottom bit up into the center, and you're bringing this bit over, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it over like this, and then you're going to repeat that process. So this is creating those layers within the pastry. Okay, so make sure that it doesn't stick to your worktop. If it does start to stick, then you need to add some more flour. And then you're going to repeat that. So going from the bottom and into the centre and down into the centre. Then what you're going to do, which is really important, is you're going to chill it. So you can either blast it in the freezer for 10-15 minutes to settle the butter, to stop it from seeping out and to create those successful layers. Because otherwise what happens is if it's too warm, then when it's cooking, all the butter seeps out and you just end up with a flat short crust pastry which has no layers to it at all. So you need to make sure that you chill it, so that's really important. So this one here has been layered, it's chilled, so I'm going to use this as my example. So to create our bunnies. So what seems like quite a simple recipe has been made more complex because of you making your own pastry, and it's not that difficult to do. So it's an up, down, and quarter turn. As best as you can. There we are, starting to stick a little bit. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're going to cut it in half. Okay. So this bit we'll use later. And what we want is we want to try and shape it a bit better than how I've shaped it here. We want to try and get it a little bit more square. So I can cut some of that down and cut some of that across there. Okay, so this is what you will end up with. Then what you're going to do is you're going to get some butter. And you're just going to brush all the way along the pastry. Okay, so it gives that flavour. Fat gives flavour. And then what you're going to do is, if you're doing cinnamon, so I've got 2 tablespoons of sugar and 2 tablespoons of cinnamon here, is you're going to dust leaving the edges clear. So you're going to dust this all the way over. Okay, so sprinkling that on evenly, making sure that you do have a gap on the edges. And then you're going to roll out our other bit so that it matches the shape as best as possible. And we can cut off any of the bits that we don't need. And I can stretch it over if I need to. Okay, so you're going to lay it over. Okay, so those are the edges there at the end that should seal. And then what you're going to do is, using a fork, you're just going to crimp the edges. And what you're then going to do is, you can use a pizza cutter for this. The pastry's so soft that I'm just going to cut through it with a palette knife. You're going to cut strips. So, if you're doing the chocolate version of this, then what it is that you just did with the sugar and the cinnamon, you will heat up some chocolate spread or some Nutella in the microwave for about 30 seconds until it's spreadable, and you will spread it over all of the one layer of the pastry and leave the edges clear, and you'll do the same thing where you lay the other bit of pastry over it and then you crimp it. So for the chocolate version, you're going to cover the same area as what I've just shown you with the sugar and the cinnamon. Okay, you can make these thinner if you want to. And then what you're going to do, once you've got your strips and you're happy, they'll be quite delicate. Okay, so what you're going to do, I'll use this one because these edges are pinched together, so it's really important that the edges are pinched together, because that's what you're going to use to help you twist. So I'm going to pull and twist. So you're getting the edges that are stuck together. Give it a little bit of a pull, and then you're going to keep this bit free, and then you're going to twist round so effectively this is the bunny face and these are the ears. Then you're going to place them on your baking tray. Make sure that you give a little bit of a gap in between, because the rough puff pastry will, or the puff pastry, will expand. You're going to brush it with some egg. So again, it's a dough, so it's really important to give that glaze, and then they go into the oven for 20 minutes on 200 degrees. So these go onto your baking tray. You might need a few of them to be able to fit all of them onto, and they're going to go into the oven at 200 degrees or gas mark 6 for 12 to 15 minutes until they're cooked through. Hi everyone, so they're done. They went into the oven for 12-15 minutes. It depends on the type of oven that you have. Gas ovens, they might cook a bit quicker. So what you'll find is the pastry will have puffed up, and you'll get that really lovely cinnamon or chocolatey smell in your kitchen. Now, just to add something extra, what I've done is I've whipped up some cream, so some double cream. I've whisked it up into soft peaks, making sure that I don't over whisk, because if you do over whisk cream, then it ends up turning into butter, so it separates and it becomes grainy. So I have got a piping bag with a star tip here, and really the best tool to use to fill your piping bag is your hand. So you cup it over and open there, and then I'm just going to put some of the double cream into the piping bag, and then you fold the piping bag over and squish the double cream down. Now, you can flavour the cream if you want to add a bit of sweetness. You could do this with custard if you want to as well, just get it to that thick consistency. If you're serving it as a pudding on Easter Sunday, then you can place it on a plate and then pipe a small amount of cream in the middle for that finishing touch. Okay, so there you go. There are your cinnamon or chocolate puff pastry bunnies. Enjoy.